Wassail, welcome to Rune Revival. I was in a group chat with Rune School the other day, which gave rise to what I think is an excellent idea regarding vowel development, and I'd like your feedback on it. So we're all on the same page. Runes originated for a language called Proto-Germanic. It had these vowels represented by these runes. When the Anglo-Saxons came over to Britain, the back vowels began fronting. It all started when a rune called Othala got attracted to moved in right next door, and changed her name to Ethel. But didn't feel the same, so he moved up and in with Io. Ethel couldn't take a hint and went chasing again moving in right next door. Uraz then became curious to see what was going on. He started spending time with Is, and they ended up having a baby. But she kicked him out and kept the kid, while he lost half his name and became Ur. While all that was going on, Ansuz looked around and was like, "Hey, all my neighbors cleared out. I guess this is free real estate." So he gave his three sons, Ark, Ash, and Ors, their inheritance and went into retirement. Io then got sick of everyone overcrowding him and had a breakdown. But that's a story for later. That brings us to the beginning of the story of Old English runes. The point of this video is to propose what we hope is a better system for how to make the runic vowels work for today's English. We'll start with pure vowels because they're the easiest to see on the chart. Historically, the vowels represented by Is, and Ash all lowered. Although Ethel sometimes merged into under certain circumstances it backed, putting it right on top of Ors. This factor is key to what follows, and the most significant difference to what we've previously proposed on this channel. Following the lead of the front vowels, that caused Ors to lower while Ethel lagged behind. At this point, we need to deal with the baby of Ur and Is. Its historic sound disappeared. However, another sound later split from Ur's domain. That is the strut vowel. Consequently, repurposing that rune in this way is a justifiable development. In various accents, Ur, its baby, and Ak have all expanded their historic domains centrally. That causes the strut vowel to also be used for the schwa at the end of comma. But that causes no problems, as there are no cases where the resulting words could be confused. Now let's look at sliding vowels. Old English had 3 front-to-back slides. Io didn't always slide as shown, but when it did slide, it had a bad habit of going in all sorts of directions while usually beginning somewhere in this region. Hence why the sound from that period is called unstable I. If we look at where it could be positioned on our vowel chart, 2 of those vowels already have a rune, and the 3 rounded vowels are basically disused today. That leaves only one option. In most accents, it's the fleece vowel. Unlike the pure vowels, the original open sliding vowel moved up the vowel space. Nonetheless, it was always historically the sound in the word na, which became near. That vowel is almost always followed by today, but in most accents it still appears non-rhotically in the word vehement. As the final vowel in happy can be realized the same as either the fleece or kit vowel, depending on accent, and that vowel can be consecutively followed by the schwa without a slide in words such as alien and premium, neither Is nor Io could be used at the beginning of a digraph for this diphthong without causing confusion. Consequently, this rune needs to be retained to represent this diphthong. On the other hand, the mouth vowel neatly slides from the domain of Ash to that of Ur in most accents. There is no problem representing this slide as a digraph because these 2 vowels would otherwise never occur next to each other like this. As for the rune yor, its historic sound is useless to us, but if we suppose that, had runes remained in use, its sound could have metathesized at some point, then that would represent a sound which was still used in early modern English. That sound lowered and merged into the choice vowel. Note how that vowel's target phone can vary and may even become the y consonant under certain conditions. It's worth mentioning, in areas under Viking influence, eor had another sound more like ea, the inverse of today's price vowel. So, to limit confusion, if we reduce eor's domain to its range of target phones, then the vowels of choice, price, and by extension face can be distinguished by writing their onset phones before yor. In the cases of price and face, this works perfectly. Choice is a little more difficult as some accents begin it at the open mid back vowel while others begin it at the close mid back vowel. The open mid are the majority, but I'd like to suggest using ethel-is for the choice vowel is a better solution. Why? It's because this creates a triangular situation where any merger between these three sets can be denoted by using the onset rune which falls between them as shown on screen now. Practically nobody merges face and choice, but the nurse choice merger would use the same digraph because the same sound also results from that merger. Here are all the resulting possibilities. You'll notice I've also added a digraph for Rune, for those who've begun saying that word as one syllable using that slide. As for the rhotic vowels, they all neatly align with their non-rhotic equivalents. If you want me to talk more on this, leave a comment. As most accents don't distinguish the vowel in weir from the near vowel, nor the force vowel from the north vowel, the resulting popular rhotic vowels would be these. Note how the square vowel of the lady's name Mary is written with a bind rune, while the vowel in merry, as in Merry Christmas, is written as two separate runes. As most good runic fonts include that bind rune, this is a convention for ease of recognition. But if you can't type that bind rune, the difference is minor. The rhotic sliding vowels would retain their usual domains for their onsets. Perhaps the only question arising from this is whether flower, with a U, should be distinguished from flower, with a W. If so, how? If not, should carry a w glide? Here are the runes resulting proper domains under this system. This also raises the question of whether ethel alone is sufficient to represent the goat vowel in all words, or if it needs to be followed by win sometimes. If so, what rule could be applied to know when? When followed by a consonant, ethel alone would appear to be sufficient, except perhaps when it's followed by rad. Could using a bind rune for the force vowel, but not in Orion, solve that problem? When followed by a vowel, Latin spelling is inconsistent, but what else is new? Nonetheless, as there is always a syllable break after the goat vowel when it's followed by another vowel, I see no reason for why win should need to be written between those vowels. It would be up to the individual to decide whether their accent inserts a w glide there or not. So, if you compare these proper domains with those of Old English runes, how accurately do you think a time-traveling rune master from 1,000 years ago could pronounce words written using these vowels today? What about a Proto-Germanic speaking rune master? Leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments, and thanks for watching.